God says, $2 trillion release. Final heavenly decree. Today, October 1st, 2025. Prayer for money. Beloved child, hear this word with the ear of your spirit, for it comes not as repetition but as a fresh decree spoken directly into your life today. I, the Lord your God, declare that $2 trillion have been released under your name. And this is not merely about numbers or wealth, but about restoration, transformation, and identity. Many around you may ask, why you, why now? And I answer with certainty, because I saw what others overlooked, because I chose you even when you thought yourself too ordinary, too unqualified, or too broken. Remember Gideon, who called himself the least of the least, yet I clothed him with courage to rescue an entire nation. In the same way, I call you now, mighty warrior, to rise and receive not just money, but the full measure of your calling. For this release is precise. It is the weight of your assignment, the overflow of your faithfulness, and the visible sign of my promise over your life. You know well the weariness of daily struggle those days at the grocery store when you counted every coin, embarrassed that your card might be declined, or the silent prayers you whispered while standing in line at the bank, hoping your balance would stretch, or the long nights staring at the ceiling wondering if tomorrow would look any different. Not a single one of those moments was wasted, for every sigh became a seed, every tear became a record, and every sacrifice a deposit into heaven's vault. And today, I open that vault before you, so that your wilderness transforms into abundance. Just as I opened Hagar's eyes to a well in the desert when she thought she was forgotten, so I now open your eyes to see that what you thought was barren is actually the pathway to your blessing. And this 2 trillion release is your well, your endless stream in a dry land. Consider also the widow with the jar of oil who believed she had nothing left, yet her small remnant became an overflow through my power. In the same way, your little has become the seed for much. For I can trust you to pour out what is small, and I can now trust you to steward what is great. Beloved, this decree means no more scraping to survive, no more dreading calls from creditors, no more shame of lack. For I remove the stain of insufficiency and replace it with the abundance of heaven, declaring peace over your household, stability over your children, and prosperity over your future, as it is written in Philippians 4, verse 19. My God shall supply all your need according to his riches in glory by Christ Jesus. And again in Psalm 20, verse 1. May the Lord answer you in the day of trouble. May the name of the God of Jacob protect you. These words are not distant promises, but living power for your present. For just as Hagar, Gideon, and the widow saw their destiny changed, so shall you see your life transformed. Beloved child, the 2 trillion is not just money. It is freedom, restoration, and a divine stamp that says you are chosen, not forsaken. Take this prayer for money into your heart, and let this prayer for money miracle become your daily confession. Because when you trust God, you unlock the flow of blessings that no man can shut. As the great Charles Spurgeon once said, God is too good to be unkind, and he is too wise to be mistaken. And when we cannot trace his hand, we must trust his heart. So walk boldly today, knowing that heaven's decree is final, your portion is secure, and your miracle is already in motion. Beloved child, let this word take root in your heart and echo through your daily life until it becomes your living reality. Picture yourself stepping into stores without fear or shame, blessing others without keeping score, and planning your dreams without hesitation, because you know heaven has already funded them. Imagine medical bills paid in full, loans dissolved like mist, and opportunities flowing to you like rivers of grace. See yourself blessing your family with dignity, your neighbors with generosity, and your community with hope. This is not a fantasy, but the ripple of the release of 2 trillion written in heaven's ledger for you today. October 1st, 2025. A sign of a prayer for financial breakthrough already heard. And child, understand this: you are not receiving for yourself alone, but to become a vessel of restoration. Do you remember Tabitha, also called Dorcas in the early church, who clothed the poor and sewed garments for widows when she died? The community wept and showed Peter the garments she had made, and she was raised back to life because her hands were too valuable to be silenced. Your life is like hers. Your quiet giving has been seen, your hidden service remembered. Heaven's records are perfect, and the vault has been opened. Others may have overlooked you because you were not loud, not celebrated, not at center stage, but I have never overlooked you. Place your hand on your heart now and whisper, "I am chosen." And let that confession break every lie that told you otherwise. You are not behind. You are not late. You are not forgotten. 2 trillion has been written into your story at precisely the right time, a sign that your financial prayer has reached heaven. Stand tall, lift your eyes, breathe in hope again. For I have not only written this decree, I am watching over it to perform it, as it is written in Psalm 20, verse 1. May the Lord answer you in the day of trouble. May the name of the God of Jacob protect you. Beloved child, lean in closer, for I want you to see the detail of what I am doing. This release is far greater than money. It is a restoration of dignity, the rebuilding of what was broken, the renewal of dreams you had buried. Think of Ruth, the widow from Moab who gathered scraps at the edge of someone else's field. Her life looked like survival, not abundance. Yet because of her faithfulness, I positioned her steps into Boaz's land, and from her came a lineage of kings. Like Ruth, you have known what it is to gather scraps, stretch food across too many days, or take leftover hours at work. But now I shift you from gleaning to owning, from surviving to thriving. 2 trillion is the sign of that transfer, the evidence of a prayer for financial breakthrough answered. Consider also Nehemiah, a simple cupbearer whose heart broke over ruined walls. Did I not give him favor, resources from a foreign king, and protection he could never arrange himself? You too have looked at the broken finances, fragile relationships, and crumbling hope in your life and wondered how to rebuild. Today I give you not only the vision, but the resources, the favor, and the protection. This release is not for your comfort alone, but for your rebuilding. That where ruin stood, restoration will rise. And like the Shunammite woman who built a small room for the prophet and later received a son when hope seemed gone, you have done good without expecting return. You've helped others, prayed for those who never knew you carried them, and your harvest is here, as it is written in Galatians 6, verse 9. Let us not grow weary in doing good, for in due season we shall reap if we do not lose heart. So I ask you now, what will you build with this blessing? Who will you lift up, clothe, feed, or encourage as heaven multiplies your hands? Will you allow this decree to transform you from the inside out, so that your story becomes a testimony for others? Comment amen, subscribe, and share this word humbly. For as you do, you align with heaven's decree. The lesson for you today is this: wealth without purpose is empty, but provision tied to service multiplies miracles. 2 trillion is not only a number, but a reminder that God's timing is perfect. His records are flawless, and your faith has moved his heart. Hold fast to your financial prayer. Speak your prayer for financial breakthrough boldly, and step into this season with courage, knowing you are chosen, resourced, and ready to be a blessing beyond what you have ever imagined. Beloved child, hear me clearly, because this message is not a coincidence. It is for you right now, and it comes with a heavenly decree of blessing and restoration. God says today, on October 1st, 2025, that the seeds you once planted in faith, even the smallest acts of kindness that no one else noticed, are not forgotten, and they are now returning to you in a harvest of abundance, a release that the heavens have measured not in scarcity, but in overflow. You may have walked through seasons when the world labeled you as ordinary, as not enough, when bills piled higher than your income, when you counted coins at the grocery store or stretched a meal across 2 days. Yet in those hidden tears and whispered prayers for finances at the midnight hour, heaven saw you. God reminds you now that your label has changed. You are not forgotten. You are not worthless. You are His beloved heir. And the release of 2 trillion is not just about numbers, but about the shifting of your destiny. Have you ever asked yourself why your heart still holds hope even after disappointment? That is because the Spirit within you knew this day would come. Scripture reminds us in Psalm 20, verse 1, "May the Lord answer you when you are in distress. May the name of the God of Jacob protect you." This is not just ancient poetry. It is a living promise for your situation today. And as I tell you this, I want you to see with your spirit's eyes. No more living from crisis to crisis. No more shame when the phone rings, and it is another request for help you could not give. Instead, picture your fridge full, your wallet that does not empty, your home filled with peace, and your heart steady. Because God's money prayer has touched you. Can you imagine paying someone else's bill with a smile, funding opportunities others thought impossible, or even granting scholarships to children who never believed they could afford education? This is not fantasy. It is the natural outflow of what God is placing into your hands as you learn how to attract money with a pure heart and use it for good. Think of the story of Onesimus, once a runaway slave considered worthless. Yet Paul wrote in love that he should be received no longer as a slave, but more than a slave, as a beloved brother. That is the same transformation God is declaring over you. Your status has shifted, and the world's labels no longer define you. My friend, are you ready to accept that change and walk into the identity of an heir and not a beggar? Because this is what prayer for finances opens for you, a door where heaven's abundance meets your earthly need. Yet, God also gives wisdom along with wealth, because every blessing attracts both true friends and false ones. Remember Nehemiah, who discerned the tricks of Sanballat and Tobiah and refused to be distracted from his divine assignment. In the same way, wisdom will be your shield and discernment your weapon. No trap will succeed, no scheme will prosper, because you will recognize who is for your destiny and who is against it. And here is where I pause to ask you personally, how will you use this blessing once it arrives? Will you let fear chain you to old patterns? Or will you rise with boldness to live generously and lift others up? Jesus himself said in John 10, verse 10, "I have come that they may have life and have it more abundantly." This is not about scraping by. It is about stepping into an abundant life that reflects God's goodness. The release of 2 trillion is not just about your bank account. It is a prophetic sign that you are right on time, like Ruth entering the field just when Boaz was watching, or Nehemiah speaking to the king at the perfect moment. Timing is divine, and today is your moment. So take this truth into your spirit. You are not behind, you have not missed it, and you are exactly where you need to be for heaven's decree to meet you. Breathe deeply and whisper these words aloud, "I am ready for restoration." Let this declaration echo through your heart until every lie of delay and insufficiency falls silent. And as you say it, know that heaven leans closer. For prayer for finances is not a desperate cry anymore, but a confident alignment with God's abundant will. The question now is not if you are ready for the miracle, but how you will carry it when it arrives. Will you walk as one who has been restored, confident, generous, and unshaken beloved? Today marks the beginning of your abundance story. This is your time, and this is heaven's decree for you. So rise, believe, and receive, beloved child of God. Hear me clearly, and let these words settle deep into your heart. Because today heaven is announcing something far greater than numbers on a page. 6 trillion has been released into your destiny. Not tomorrow, not someday, but now. And this is just the beginning of a divine alignment where heaven and earth meet, and no delay can stop you, no enemy can block you, and no door can remain closed before you. For this is not merely about finance, but about right timing, right positioning, and right connections flowing into your life as an answer to your long-awaited prayer for money and your sincere prayer for money miracle. Think of Esther, the orphan girl raised in obscurity who was brought into the palace not just to wear a crown, but to save a nation. She did not arrive too early or too late, but precisely for such a time as this. And the same God who positioned her is now positioning you so that every moment you feared you had missed is redeemed, and every opportunity you thought had slipped away is restored, confirming that you are exactly where you need to be, walking into the timing prepared for you before the foundation of the world. Consider also the widow at Zarephath who prepared her last meal for herself, and her son convinced death was near. Yet at that precise moment, I sent my prophet Elijah to her door, turning what she thought was her ending into her new beginning. And just as I multiplied her jar of oil and her flour until the famine ended, so now I multiply what remains in your life until overflow defines you. For 6 trillion is not just provision, but multiplication, a sign that your whispered prayers in the dark have been heard. As it is written in Psalm 20, verse 1, "May the Lord answer you when you are in distress. May the name of the God of Jacob protect you." And this is my promise to you today. Child, perhaps you see yourself more like Lydia, the merchant of purple cloth, not a preacher, not a warrior, not a prophet, but an ordinary worker, a business person, someone going to work, paying bills, and providing for family. Yet when Lydia opened her heart to the message of Paul, she became the first convert in her city and used her resources to support the early church. And in the same way, every sale you have made, every hour you have worked, every coin you have saved has been seen by me. And now I take what seemed small and breathe on it with my spirit to transform it into influence, impact, and expansion in ways you could never imagine, as it is written in Deuteronomy 8, verse 18, "But remember the Lord your God, for it is He who gives you the ability to produce wealth, and so confirms His covenant with you. And this is the covenant I reaffirm over you today through this prayer for money miracle." Alignment, my beloved, looks like the phone call you have been waiting for arriving at the perfect time, the right person showing up with the solution you did not even know you needed, the bill you dreaded paying suddenly canceled, or the idea that had been buried suddenly finding wings. And this is the rhythm I now release into your life. No more struggling to force doors open because they will swing wide on their own. No more running after opportunities because they will find you. And as you respond in faith by commenting 111 as a prophetic act, you are not just typing a number, but declaring with your own hand, "I align with heaven, I accept my portion, I step into divine timing," making your action a visible seed of invisible alignment. Think also of Anna, the prophetess, who waited decades in the temple praying, fasting, and believing she would see the Messiah while others gave up, but she endured. And at the exact moment my son was brought into the temple, she was there to witness fulfillment. So do not be weary in waiting, because your moment of fulfillment has come, and this 6 trillion release is your sign that heaven's decree is now manifesting. Therefore, let your heart be steady, let your faith be strong, and walk into this season of answered prayers knowing that the same God who raised Esther, sustained the widow, blessed Lydia, and rewarded Anna is working behind the scenes to do exceedingly abundantly above all that you ask or think. Turning your prayer for money into a testimony, and your prayer for money, miracle, into a life of overflow, influence, and impact that blesses not only you, but generations to come. Child, I know your waiting has been long, and I know people have said to you, "Why bother? Nothing will change." But like Anna in the temple, your perseverance has positioned you for this moment. And what I am releasing now is not only financial provision, but a vindication of your waiting. This is not just wealth. It is a sign that every small step of obedience, every hidden act of service, every tear you shed has been watering seeds underground. The jobs you took that paid little, but trained your hands. The responsibilities you carried that no one thanked you for but built your strength. The nights you cried when no one noticed. All of those moments were alignment. Nothing was wasted. Nothing was random. And now, in one sweeping release, I align your past with your future. This is how alignment feels: suddenly light where there was heaviness, suddenly clarity where there was confusion, suddenly favor where there was rejection, suddenly yes where there was always no. You will step into meetings and feel peace settle like a cloak. You will open emails and find answers waiting. You will turn corners and bump into provision. This is alignment in action. This is the doorway to abundance. Whisper aloud, "I align," and let it become your declaration. For today, I declare before you that the door is open. Beloved child, hear the depth of my voice. For I am not only pouring 6 trillion into your destiny, but I am also clothing you with calling. This release is not for display or empty possession, but for purpose. Wealth is entrusted where hearts are prepared, and your heart has been weighed, your character tested, and your faith refined, which is why this moment is yours. This is more than a financial prayer answered. It is the fulfillment of a lifetime of sowing. Look at Deborah, a woman sitting under a palm tree in days when warriors trembled. She did not wear armor, yet her words carried more weight than swords. She was both judge and prophetess, lifting a people who thought themselves defeated. Like her, you have often felt unqualified, too ordinary for the weight you carried. And yet in quiet places, your wisdom has guided others, your courage has inspired, and your prayers have upheld. This 6 trillion does not only enrich you, but amplifies your voice. And where once you felt ignored, now nations will listen. Where once you felt overlooked, now your words will build foundations. Consider Cornelius, the Roman centurion who wasn't born into covenant, yet whose prayers and generosity rose like incense before me. His devotion unlocked a visitation that changed history, and he and his household became the first Gentiles filled with my Spirit. Child, you have prayed in secret, given without applause, believed without proof, and like Cornelius, your devotion has reached heaven. This is why your prayer for financial breakthrough is answered today. Remember also the Shunammite woman who built a small upper room for my prophet. She did not build it for reward, but out of kindness. Yet through that room I birthed a son into her arms, and later raised him from death, like her. You have built rooms for others, providing space, encouragement, help, meals, even when no one offered you the same. You thought it small, but I declare it mighty. 6 trillion is not just wealth. It is resurrection. Dreams you buried will breathe again. Promises you mourned will rise again. And consider Simon of Cyrene, the man compelled to carry my son's cross. He did not plan for that moment. Yet history remembers his name because of one act of unexpected service. So, child, I am calling you to hold this truth close to your heart, as it is written in Psalm 20, verse 1. The Lord hear you in the day of trouble. The name of the God of Jacob defend you. And again in Isaiah 60, verse 5. Then you will look and be radiant. Your heart will throb and swell with joy. The wealth of the seas will be brought to you. To you the riches of the nations will come. Let these promises anchor your faith as you step into this new season. Can you see how every unseen sacrifice has prepared you for this? Can you believe that what looked like delay was actually divine timing? This is not only your financial prayer being answered, but your heart being aligned with heaven's rhythm. Today, take this as your lesson. Abundance is never for display, it is for purpose. What God pours into your hands is meant to overflow into the lives of others. Stay faithful, stay generous, and keep your spirit anchored in prayer for financial breakthrough. Because as you align, you will not only see wealth released, but purpose fulfilled. This is the day heaven has chosen to show you that your waiting was not in vain. My beloved child, listen to me closely, because what I am saying is not fantasy but fulfillment, not an empty promise but a final heavenly decree for your life. You have been the one quietly carrying weights that were not yours, helping a sibling through crisis, covering debts, raising children not your own, stretching a paycheck so others could eat, standing long hours at work while hiding your own hunger and holding back tears. Did you think I would forget? Every unseen sacrifice has been multiplied in my sight. Every prayer for finances whispered in the dark has been stored up as treasure, and now the release flows to honor it. 2 trillion is the redemption of silent sacrifices, an answer to the money prayer you have lifted again and again, a sign that your faith has drawn heaven's attention. Think of the parent who wakes at dawn rushing to work, or the caregiver tending the sick unnoticed and unpaid, or the worker pressing on when no one claps. This is you, and I see you, and I reward you. I release abundance that wipes away the years of silent strain. Yet hear me. This wealth is not excess. It is assignment. I give you so much because your reach will be so wide. Families will find shelter through you. Strangers will find hope through you. Communities will find healing through you. And while you pour out, you will also taste joy, rest without worry, laugh without fear, and walk without weight. For I will shield you from the shadows that wealth can attract. Just as Nehemiah discerned the enemies who tried to distract him, you too will sense who is true and who is false. And every trap will be revealed, every scheme exposed, every counterfeit uncovered, while I set true allies at your side whose hearts beat with purity. Lift your eyes, beloved. This is not indulgence. This is inheritance. This is not vanity. This is victory. I am stretching your influence, expanding your reach, and multiplying your impact. What I place in your hands will ripple far beyond you. Remember the promise in Psalm 20, verse 1. May the Lord answer you when you are in distress. May the name of the God of Jacob protect you. For I have heard every cry. Like Hannah who poured out her soul in the temple and birthed Samuel. Your hidden petitions are about to produce answers that carry generations of impact. 2 trillion is not just provision, it is the Samuel to your Hannah, the manifestation of what you believed I could do. Think of Bezalel, the craftsman I filled with wisdom to build the tabernacle. He was not a warrior or priest, but an artist, and his hands built what housed my glory. Beloved, you have gifts others called ordinary: your art, your teaching, your skill with tools, your eye for detail. But those ordinary gifts are extraordinary when touched by my Spirit. This release does not erase your gifts but amplifies them, and your creativity will fund visions, your skill will open doors, your hands will craft what hosts my presence. Remember also the assurance in Deuteronomy 8, verse 18. But remember the Lord your God, for it is He who gives you the ability to produce wealth. Because what you are receiving is not luck, but legacy. Like Barnabas, whose generosity lifted Paul into destiny. You will fund dreams that outlive you and bless people you never met, living in houses you did not build and attracting the resources needed to finish your calling. Whisper with me now, I was made for this, and let those words erase every doubt. Do you feel the shift inside your spirit? Do you believe that your prayer for finances, your attract money faith, your money prayer of many years has unlocked a season where calling meets capacity? This is the moment your sacrifice becomes seed, your waiting becomes testimony, and your destiny becomes visible. Beloved child, I see the heart of Barnabas in you, the encourager, the giver, the one who quietly lifts up others when they cannot stand alone. You have spoken life into people standing on the edge of giving up, and you have shared what little you had just to keep someone else afloat. Heaven has not forgotten your hidden acts of kindness. This release of 6 trillion is not random. It is heaven's response to your encouragement. Every seed of hope you sowed now returns multiplied, as written in Psalm 20, verse 1. May the Lord answer you when you are in distress. May the name of the God of Jacob protect you. Look also at Priscilla and Aquila, tent makers by trade, who opened their home to teach and host the early church. Their business funded ministry and their home became a place of fire. Like them, you too have opened your home, your time, and your resources even when it was inconvenient. You have been faithful in the small spaces, and now God opens greater ones. 6 trillion means your home will no longer just be a shelter, but a hub of blessing. This is not just a financial prayer answered for you. It is the unfolding of your calling. Think of the teacher who buys supplies from their own pocket so children can learn. Think of the nurse who works long shifts comforting strangers, often missing meals and sleep. Think of the artist who pours heart into creations that few ever pay for. Think of the small business owner working double shifts to keep doors open while hiding financial stress. These are the lives God sees, the sacrifices He counts. And this is why He releases abundance, because He rewards not only the public deeds, but the hidden ones too. Child, you have been faithful in places no one applauded. You have carried responsibilities others did not notice. You have stood in the shadows offering light to others. Now you are entering a season where the fruit will be undeniable. This is a true prayer for financial breakthrough unfolding in your life. 6 trillion is not only for your comfort, it is for your calling. You will fund dreams bigger than your own, launch works that continue after you are gone, and build what others thought impossible. Yet as He enlarges you, He also covers you. With influence comes attention, but you will not be consumed. God will hide you from snares, guide your steps with clarity, and give you discernment about who to partner with, who to release, and who to avoid. You will carry abundance with humility, influence with integrity, and authority with gentleness. Lift your head, beloved. You are not just a recipient, you are a river. A river does not keep what flows into it, but passes life to everything it touches. You will be that river. Families will flourish, Communities will rise, lives will change, and generations will remember. Speak aloud right now, I am a river, not a reservoir. Let that confession seal your heart. Beloved child, hear God's voice as He opens the layers of this release. 6 trillion has not come to you by coincidence. It is the fruit of long preparation. Seasons of delay were not punishment, but refining. Every weight you carried, every test you endured, every moment you thought would break you was shaping the strength required to hold what He now places in your hands. Remember Mordecai, who stood watch at the palace gates. Others overlooked him, but he overheard the plot to harm the king, and his faithfulness was recorded in the royal book. For years he went unrewarded, yet at the appointed moment the king commanded honor for him. My child, like Mordecai, you too have been faithful at the gate, showing up daily, working quietly, protecting, serving without applause. Heaven recorded every act, every word, every sacrifice, and now the record is being opened and the reward poured out. 6 trillion to honor your faithfulness. Think also of the Good Samaritan, who was not a priest, not a Levite, not someone considered holy by society's standards. Yet when he saw a wounded man, he stopped, poured oil and wine, carried him to safety, and paid for his healing. Beloved, you have been the Samaritan many times. You gave to the hurting when you yourself were bruised. You carried others when you had little strength, and you paid from your own lack to cover another's need. You thought it went unnoticed, but God saw it. Today He declares your giving has come up as a memorial before Him, and as written in Luke 6, verse 38, "Give, and it will be given to you. A good measure, pressed down, shaken together and running over, will be poured into your lap." 6 trillion is not random. It is the multiplied return of every hidden act of compassion. Beloved, bring this into your daily story. Think of the caregiver who wakes in the night to tend to an aging parent, the volunteer who serves meals to strangers, the single parent juggling 2 jobs and still tucking children in at night. Think of the neighbor who shares food from their garden, the friend who shows up when no one else does, the worker who stays late to help colleagues while their own tasks remain unfinished. This is you. These are the acts God has counted, the seeds He has watered, and today He brings the harvest. 6 trillion is not simply about lifting financial burdens. It is about rewriting your identity. For too long you saw yourself through the lens of struggle, the one who barely made it, the one others leaned on but seldom supported. That label is gone now. You are chosen, trusted, and resourced. This is not only a financial prayer answered, but a sign of your vindication. As you receive this, keep your heart open. What will you build with what God places in your hands? Who will you lift next? What new door will you open for someone else? This is the lesson and the invitation. You are a river, and the flow will not stop with you. Pass it on, and watch as lives, communities, and generations are transformed.